Hi there, friends. Welcome back to Spiritual Conversation. I am Jacqueline Claire, and I'm going to move that a little bit. There we go. So, today I wanted to talk about social media use in general, but specifically as it impacts children, potentially. This is an exploration. I will admit having a clear bias on this issue, so we'll just get that out of the way. Also, it's not infrequent that I mention television or social media use, and people write me in defense of all the reasons why it can be beneficial or they like it. And I just want to say, I understand that. I use social media. We use it because there are benefits, and we watch television or whatever it is because there are some benefits. So I understand that. We'll get that out of the way. So, some background, some context. I recently read this very controversial book called Irreversible Damage: The Transgender Craze Seducing Our Daughters. And it had many elements that surprised me. One of which I found particularly interesting was the role that social media and social media echo chambers played in the case studies of these girls who very suddenly developed gender dysmorphia. Yes. And it got me thinking about my own childhood, my own adolescence, way back in the day before smartphones, and definitely before the existence of social media and then the use of it to the point that we are. My mom, when I was a child and growing up, probably took more photos and videos than was typical of children and adolescents at that time. And now, we're filming breakfast, it's very, very common. But I was thinking about it, and I was thinking about how it used to be so weird to hear your own voice in a recording, right? It was always like, oh, is that what I sound like? And when I was a kid, you take the photo and you wait a week to get it developed, and then you find by the time you see the photo, like the excitement of the moment has passed. And also with video, I remember once I was old enough to be self-conscious about it, I was often disappointed with myself in the video. I was like, ew, not only is that what I sound like, but is that really what I look like? Like, I thought I looked better than that. And I was thinking about all of that, and how because of the limitations of technology at that time, because it was so spread out, the occasions for that, for being filmed or photographed, it didn't have a lot of weight to it. And my childhood and my adolescence took place in an environment of, one, privacy, other than my immediate life. No one else was involved in my upbringing, and no one else was seeing my, awkward teeth growing in, and all my awkward phases and acne and so forth. So it offered privacy, and it also offered spaciousness. There was space for me to grow up, and space to dream about who I may grow up to be. And there was also a detachment, because there wasn't constant mirroring, a constant look and reflection and analyzation of where I was in that process. And nowadays, young people have many things being thrust at them with social media. One is that they are bombarded with images of perfection, of highly coiffed, tailored, airbrushed, manipulated images of perfection. And they are of their own peers, too. Again, when people my age, when we were young, we had images of perfection on TV and magazines, but we kind of knew that was fake, and it was, again, a very limited, segregated part of life. Now with social media, it's girls and boys your own age, supposedly, and it's you're constantly being seen because of the scroll effect of TikTok and all of the different social media sites. So they're being constantly bombarded with false images of perfection that have none of the vulnerability of a real person. You know, the pretty girl at school, like, at least has awkward moments, but on social media that doesn't exist. And then they are also likely seeing themselves constantly. And I don't know if this applies to men, but the mirror rule definitely applies to women. Like, when you're getting ready in the morning or getting ready to go out for a night out or something, you don't want to look in the mirror too much. Get your job done, do your hair, whatever, and stop looking in the mirror, because you will start to drive yourself crazy. You will start to see all kinds of flaws, and the excitement you had for going out is going to go down, 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 because you're going to start beating yourself up. This is just something that happens. And think about our poor children whose brains aren't developed, who are growing up in this environment, who don't have a frame of reference for it, are constantly seeing themselves not just in a mirror, but in a device and then online. So they're seeing images of perfection, and then they're constantly seeing their sorry selves and how far they are from these images of perfection. So there we get this big chasm of this concept of what starts to become what people think a man or a woman is, and then they see their awkward ass selves, and they're like, oh, well, I guess I'm not that. If I don't look like that, then I guess I'm not a woman. And sometimes, instead of just like feeling bad about that or whatever, they retreat into assuming some other identity, right? I'm going to become a page boy. And I think it's very, very unhealthy to constantly see yourself on camera. Of course, I want to talk. I have a podcast. But I'm not a teenager, and I don't do this every day, and it isn't about how I look either. I'm suddenly like feeling my mom like being like, they're gonna think that's good for you to say. But I think you get my drift. And when I was a child and I would see video footage of myself, or an adolescent, again, there was this spaciousness where I could still think, well, when I grow up, I'll be the glamorous Marilyn Monroe or Liz Taylor of my imaginings. You know, like, there was space to be able to dream. And if they're constantly seeing themselves, let alone the whole world seeing them, it's I don't think it's healthy, and I think it's contributing to the trans problem of people suddenly taking these drastic moves, and it's contributing to all kinds of issues of hyper self or super low self image that adolescents and teenagers have already dealt with since the beginning of time. Another element I want to talk about with social media is that, I gotta say, I enjoy seeing a lot of my friends' children on social media. Some of them I've never met in person, and it is fun and enriching to get to feel like I'm a part of their life, that I get to see some of what they're doing. However, one, who knows what other weirdos are having that same experience. Even if your accounts are private and that sort of thing, they're not private. It's online. Everything is accessible to everyone if they want it to be. So one, you don't know who else is getting enriched by seeing your children grow up. Two, you're giving away a lot of information about your children, and I think that makes them very unsafe and very vulnerable. Three, and the part I mostly wanted to share, is that we are a transitional generation where we have this use of social media, and children are growing up with it, and we do not know the effects on those children of growing up with their whole lives being shared and broadcast. And sure, there are a few like choice moments throughout the week or month, but there's still their lives being broadcast. And those children have no way of giving their agreement to this. This is a choice parents are making without the consent, frankly, of their children, because their children are incapable of giving consent because we don't know what the effects of this are going to be. And it's kind of like we've turned all children into child stars, and everyone knows what happens to most child stars, so it is something that I hope parents will start to give a little pause and think about. It's really fun to see your children grow up, I can say, as sort of a surrogate auntie, and for a lot of people it's the thing they're most proud of, and they should be. But social media is not your friend, and before you threaten the most important person and accomplishment of your life, which is to raise these beings, just stop and cool it and think about it. And maybe you can find other ways to share some of your choice moments with a very small select group of people, or better yet, just like invite people over and do it all in person. Again, back in the 80s and 90s, when we took pictures, it was on very rare occasions, like birthdays and holidays and recitals, so forth. Now it's being taken all the time, like, hey, we got a snow cone, we did this, we did that. So it's happening much more often. And back in the day, the intention of the photo was for the family. Maybe we mail a copy to grandma, but it was mostly, in most cases, it was just to have a record of this moment in Johnny's life. Now the intention is very different. The intention is to share this moment in Johnny's life with all of my friends, And my last point here is about bonding and about the relationship children have with their parents and with their devices. And again, I reiterate, we are a experimental generation. We don't know the effects of all of this new technology we've been given, and we have so quickly integrated into the most intimate, delicate aspects of our lives. And I am concerned about children's responsiveness to devices. I see 1-year-old babies who have learned to smile at the camera. And I think that's weird, and I don't think that's healthy. And I will say, most of my childhood photos, I am not smiling. And it isn't that I was unhappy, it was that I wasn't trained to do that. And personally, I think that was pretty cool that my mom wasn't trying to get me to be a show pony. And I have held a child that was under a year old that already completely understood the concept of taking selfies. And I was posing for a picture, I admit, with this beautiful baby, and mom was taking the photo and she was standing away, and the baby lost her mind. She got so upset. She did that thing where she turned red and then purple in rage, and the mom had like a very quick understanding, oh, I understand what's going on, that the baby was so used to seeing herself in the monitor, so to speak, in the phone, and so doing this a different way and just seeing the black box away from her, like, started to make her angry because it was disrupting her familiar experience. And it was like, whoa, a baby under a year old is already acclimated to this process. And phones are often given to children to distract them, like in the grocery store. Instead of, looking around at people and learning stuff about people and about food and about smiling at people, they are babysat by their device, which makes life easier, albeit, but we have these under-socialized children. And sometimes these devices are used in bonding situations, like when babies are being changed, and that's supposed to be a time of like eye contact and nurturing and bonding between caregiver and the baby. And if they're looking at a phone, which I know happens, they're taking that time to bond with their device. And again, the children who had access to this kind of technology are probably like just now entering adolescence, who like grew up with a cell phone in their hand. And it's going to accelerate, you know, as more and more kids grow up, as happens every year. And I think we're going to start to see more of the effects of it and how this all feeds into them having a hard time connecting with human beings, which is essential for living in the real world and for pair bonding and making your own family and all that stuff. And also how adolescents are very prone, it exacerbates the tendency for adolescents to look to their peers rather than their parents or their spiritual community for identity and for guidance. And it isn't as simple as their peers. It literally has something to do with an attachment to their devices and that world seeming real to them. So, last call, parents, please reconsider your use of social media, putting your children out there as guinea pigs for how this is going to impact their development, their trust in you, that you shared all of their awkward phases with the whole world on social media, and how it's going to impact their decisions and their capacities in their teenage years and their adult life. So there's some bits to think about. Thank you for taking this exploration with me, my friends. If you enjoyed this video, or if you didn't, give it a like, give it a dislike, engage with me, comment, share your thoughts. I love to hear from you. Please remember to subscribe to this channel if you have not already. If you are moved to support this channel, check out the links below on ways you can do that. Until next time, my friends, I wish you the best for playing your unique part in making this world a better place. I'll catch you next time. Bye-bye.